Jeremiah 15, 1-21. Then Yahweh said to me, even if Moses and Samuel stood before me, my heart would not be with this people. Send them away from my sight and let them go out. And then, if they say to you, where shall we go? Then you shall say to them, thus saith Yahweh, those that are destined for the plague, to the plague, and those destined for the sword, to the sword, and those destined for famine, to famine, and those destined for captivity, to captivity. And I will summon over them 4 types of calamity, declares Yahweh. The sword to kill, and the dogs to drag away, and the birds of the air, and the wild animals of the earth to devour and to destroy. And I will make them a terror to all the kingdoms of the earth because of Manasseh, the son of Hezekiah, the king of Yehudah, because of what he did in Jerusalem. For who will have compassion on you, O Jerusalem? Or who will show sympathy to you? Or who will turn aside to ask about your welfare? You have forsaken me, declares Yahweh. You go backward, so I have stretched my hand against you, and I will destroy you. I am tired of becoming remorseful, and I have winnowed them with a winnowing fork in the gates of the land. I am bereaved. I have destroyed my people. They did not turn back from their ways. Their widows will be more numerous before me than the sands of the sea. I have brought to them against the mothers of young men a destroyer at noon. I will suddenly drop on her anguish and horror. She who gave birth to 7 has withered away. She grasps her breath. Her sun sets while still day. She has been put to shame and disgraced. And the remainder of them I will give to the sword before their enemies, declares Yahweh. Woe to me, O my mother, that you gave birth to me, a man of contention and quarreling to the whole land. I have not lent out, and I have not borrowed. All of them are cursing me. Yahweh said, surely I will set you free to be good for you. Surely I will cause the enemy to intercede with you in a time of trouble and in a time of distress. Can anyone break iron? Iron from the north or bronze? I will give your wealth and your treasures as plunder without price, even because of all your sins and throughout all your territories. And I will make you serve your enemies in a land that you do not know, for a fire will kindle in my anger. Upon you it will be kindled. You who know, O Yahweh, remember me and attend to me, and take revenge for me against my persecutors in your forbearance. You must take me away. Know that I am carrying disgrace because of you. Your words were found, and I ate them, and your words became to me a jubilation, even as the joy of my heart. For your name is called on me, O Yahweh, Elohim of hosts. I sat not in the assembly of jokers, nor did I exude because of the presence of your hand. I sat alone, for you filled me with indignation. Why is my pain endless and my wound incurable? It refuses to be healed. Truly, you are to me like a deceitful brook, waters that are not trustworthy. Therefore, thus saith Yahweh, if you turn back, then I will take you back. You will stand before me, and if you utter what is precious and not what is worthless, you will be as my mouth. They will turn back to you, and you will not turn back to them. And I will make you to this people a wall of fortified bronze, and they will fight against you, but they will not prevail over you. For I am with you to save you and to deliver you, declares Yahweh. And I will deliver you from the hand of the wicked, and I will redeem you from the hand of the tyrant. Hallelujah. Shalom, shalom, and welcome back. First, I would like to give thanks and praise to Yahweh, the King of the universe, for allowing me another opportunity to speak with you and to share the things that I have been learning about our current plight. I give thanks to you, Yahweh, for revealing these things to me at this particular time and giving me the wisdom to explain how it applies to what is written in our holy book of remembrance. In the last video, we read excerpts from the Supreme Court opinion on the Dred Scott ruling. That opinion stated that African Americans were not citizens of the United States, neither were they ever intended to become citizens. We learned that the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution abolished involuntary servitude in this land, but not slavery, as we have been taught. We also learned that it was the passing of the 14th Amendment that made all persons born in the United States citizens of the United States. We learned that a citizen of the United States is not a natural man or woman like you and I, but a civilly dead entity or corporation. Lastly, we discussed how our forefathers made a covenant with death by rebelling against the covenant of life and peace. In this video, we will continue on the path that reveals our current status in this land. Here are some questions I would like you to consider as we continue. Are we dead or alive in the sight of Yahweh and man? Are we free, men and women, like the government claims, or have we been duped into another form of slavery? I want to state for the record that the information presented in this video is for educational purposes only. I will assume no liability for how you choose to use this information. As we begin this study, I want you to remember the quote from the last video by Mel Sampters. The law is where the true history of a nation is found, not in revisionist history books. We concluded the last video on the statement that the house of Israel was civilly dead. What does it mean to be civilly dead? Civilly dead is one who is considered as if he were naturally dead, so far as his rights are concerned. Judge Robert B. Taney clearly stated in his Supreme Court opinion on the Dred Scott case in March of 1857, and I quote, "They had for more than a century before been regarded as beings of an inferior order and altogether unfit to associate with the white race, either in social or political relations, so far inferior that they had no rights which the white man was bound to respect, and that the Negro might justly and lawfully be reduced to slavery for his benefit." In 1857, the judge stated we had no rights the white man was bound to respect. Before the passing of the 13th Amendment, we were not even deemed men and women, but property. The 14th Amendment did not legally make us men and women, but a civilly dead entity or corporation. I hope it is making sense to you why our people were complaining about the lack of civil rights in the 50s and 60s, even though there was a Civil Rights Act passed in 1866. The Civil Rights Act was passed in April of 1866, even though President Andrew Johnson vetoed the bill in March of that same year. The bill was passed before the 14th Amendment, which gave us all the rights of the 14th Amendment. But as they clearly stated back then, we had no rights they were bound to respect. And we still have no rights they are bound to respect today. What was done to Kyrie Irving and Kanye West this past week is evidence that we still have no rights they are bound to respect. Yahweh told us we would be a byword and a reproach among the nations. He also told us the land of our enemies would eat us up. Leviticus 26:38-39. And you shall perish among the nations, and the land of your enemies shall eat you. And because of their guilt, the ones among you who remain shall decay in the land of their enemies. And also because of the iniquities of their ancestors, they shall decay with them. Deuteronomy 28:37. And you will become a horror and a proverb and a ridicule among the peoples where Yahweh drives you there. Have mercy. 1 Kings 9:6-9. If ever you or any of your descendants turn from following me and do not keep my commandments and my ordinances that I have set before you, and you go and serve other gods and bow down to them, then I will cut Israel off from the face of the land that I have given them, even the house which I have consecrated for my name, I will cast away from my face. And Israel shall become a proverb and an object of taunting among all the peoples. This house shall become a heap of ruins. All those passing by will be appalled by it and hiss. And they will say, on what account did Yahweh do this in the land and to this house? And they will say, because they have forsaken Yahweh their Elohim, who brought their ancestors out from the land of Egypt, and they embraced other gods and bowed down to them and served them. Therefore, Yahweh brought on them all this disaster. Have mercy. Malcolm Little, who later became known as Malcolm X, was one who proposed that we obtain our civil rights by any means necessary. He was assassinated on February 21st, 1965. The very next month, March 25th, 1965, Martin Luther King and thousands of others were marching from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama in the name of civil rights. He also was assassinated a few years later, April 4th, 1968. Both men were respected figures among us, but not knowing the ways of our Creator, they both tried to remove the yoke which Yahweh placed on our people. Deuteronomy 28:7-8. Because of the fact that you did not serve Yahweh your Elohim with joy and with gladness of heart for the abundance of everything, then you will serve your enemies, whom Yahweh will send against you under conditions of famine and thirst and nakedness and in a lack of everything. He shall place a yoke of iron on your neck until he has destroyed you. If Yahweh made us a reproach among the nations, can any man undo what Yahweh has done? Isaiah 43:11-13. I myself am Yahweh, and there is no Savior besides me. I myself declared and saved, and I proclaimed, and there was no strange ill among you. And you are my witnesses, declare Yahweh, and I am Elohim. Indeed, from this day I am the one, and no one can deliver from my hand. I performed, and who can cancel it? Unfortunately, both our brothers lost their lives because of this. Our fathers were given an opportunity to prevent this evil from coming upon us when they were secure in their own land. They refused to take heed to the warnings of the prophets. They rebelled and broke the yoke Yahweh had on them, and this was the results. Jeremiah 5:1-7. Roam about the streets of Jerusalem, and look, please, take note, and search at its public squares, if you can find a person who does justice, who seeks honesty, so that I may forgive it. And though they say, as Yahweh lives, therefore they swear falsely. O Yahweh, do not your eyes look for honesty? You have struck them, but they felt no pain. You have destroyed them. They refused to take discipline. They have hardened their faces more than a rock. They have refused to turn back. Then I said, they are just simple people. They are foolish, for they know not the way of Yahweh, the law of their Elohim. Let me go to the great, and let me speak with them. For they know the way of Yahweh, the law of their Elohim. However, they together have broken the yoke. They have torn to pieces the bonds. Therefore, a lion from the forest will kill them. A wolf from the desert plains will devastate them. A leopard is watching their cities. Everyone who goes out from there will be torn, because their transgressions are many. Their apostasies are numerous. How can I forgive you? Your children have forsaken me, and they have sworn by those who are not Els. But I fed them to the full, and they committed adultery and flocked to the houses of prostitutes. Have mercy. On June 13th, 1967, the United States Congress were debating on whether or not the 14th Amendment was legitimate. They argued that Congress had not adhered to the Constitution they are governed by when the amendment was passed. I'm quoting from page 15646 of this congressional record. For the court to give Congress any power beyond that to be found in Article 5 is to write the new material into Article 5. It would be inconceivable that the Congress of the United States could propose, compel submission to, and to give life to an invalid amendment by resolving that its effort had succeeded regardless of compliance with the positive provisions of Article 5. I'm paraphrasing now when I say that Congress had no authority to ratify the 14th Amendment without following the procedures set forth in the Constitution. Congress has no power aside from the powers given to them in the Constitution. Article 5 of the Constitution reads as such pertaining to amendments. Article 5. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the application of the legislature of 2/3 of the several states shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes. As part of this Constitution, when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states, or by conventions in 3/4 thereof, as the one or the other mode of ratification may be proposed by the Congress, provided that no amendment which may be made prior to the year 1808 shall in any manner affect this first and fourth clause in the 9th section of the first article, and that no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. This congressional document is legal testimony claiming that this procedure was not followed. Therefore, either the Constitution is a voided document not to be followed today, or this amendment is illegitimate. If illegitimate, we are not U.S. citizens today, neither were we ever meant to be, as it was ruled in the Dred Scott case, as that Supreme Court ruling has never been overturned. Congress claims that the 14th Amendment was the overturning of the Dred Scott case. It was shown in the last video that the United States congressional records dated June 13th, 1967, pages 15641 to 15646, confirms that a citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity. We have established that civilly dead entities have no rights and are considered as naturally dead. A citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as a co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the PCT, Public Charitable Trust, the constructive Cestui Que Trust of U.S. Inc., under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debts of the USA and U.S. Inc. So, we are civilly dead entities operating as co-trustees and co-beneficiaries of the PCT, Public Charitable Trust, the constructive Cestui Que Trust of U.S. Inc., under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debts of the USA and U.S. Inc. Could this small statement be a clue on the path? We already determined what a civilly dead entity is. There are some other terms we need to define to get a greater understanding before we move forward. What is a constructive trust? A constructive trust is an equitable remedy resembling a trust or implied trust imposed by a court to return title to property to the rightful owner where the person has been wrongfully deprived of ownership due to the wrongdoing of another person who has usurped the right to property by unlawful means. That's very interesting. The PCT, Public Charitable Trust, was established as a constructive Cestui Que Trust of U.S. Inc. under the 14th Amendment. We just read that a constructive trust is an equitable remedy resembling a trust or an implied trust imposed by the court to return title to property to the rightful owner where the person has been wrongfully deprived of ownership due to wrongdoings of another person who has usurped the right to the property by unlawful means. If we, the United States citizens, via the 14th Amendment, are co-trustees and co-beneficiaries of this trust, that means we are the legal owners of the assets held by the trust, because a trustee is a person or organization that holds the legal title of an asset or group of assets for another person called grantor. Please remember this term grantor because it will come up on this path. A beneficiary is a person or entity who is designated to receive the benefits of property owned by someone else. This is very interesting. What asset do we own legal title to because this public charitable trust was established as a constructive trust or an equitable remedy to right a wrong? What wrong was perpetrated on us? When I say us, this is not confined only to the descendants of the children of Israel. While my videos are mostly about my people, Yahweh has made it clear to me that we are not to be partial in right ruling. If we are for right, we must be for right for all things. We are to hate what Yahweh hates and love what Yahweh loves. Yahweh is the Elohim of justice and equity. He is not only concerned with justice and equity for Israel, he wants to see justice and equity in all places of the earth. The earth is his and the fullness thereof. If we truly fear Yahweh, we must hate evil. It must be exposed so that we can flee from it. Isaiah 61, 8-9. For I, Yahweh, love justice, hate robbery and injustice, and I will faithfully give their reward. And I will make an everlasting covenant with them, and their descendants will be known among the nations, and their offspring in the midst of the peoples. All those who see them shall recognize them, that they are descendants whom Yahweh has blessed. Hallelujah. Psalms 24:1. The earth is Yahweh's with its fullness, and the world and those who live in it. Proverbs 8:13. The fear of Yahweh is hatred of evil, pride, and arrogancy, and an evil way, and I hate a mouth of perversity. This evil has been committed against all people who claim to be United States citizens. Therefore, all of us are due this equitable remedy. What is a Cestui Que trust? The Cestui Que trust is the person or beneficiary who has an equitable interest in the trust. The word Cestui Que Vie is a French word that translates to he who lives in English. Isn't it odd for a trust to be called he who lives? The first Cestui Que trust was formed through an act of Henry VIII of England. Yes, one of the forefathers of the current British monarchy formed the first Cestui Que trust. In 1666, the monarchy passed the Proof of Life Act, better known as the Cestui Que Vie Act. After the Great Plague of 1665 and the Great Fire of 1666, which destroyed London. As a result, the government seized all private property and placed it in trust until the heirs or owners could be identified. That's correct. The British government passed a law requiring the people to prove to them and the courts that they were alive. Until they were able to prove they were alive, they were declared dead in law, and their property was handed over to the government or monarchy. That actual act reads like this: an act for redress of inconveniences by want of proof of the deceases of persons beyond the sea or absenting themselves upon whose life estate do depend. Recital that Cestui Que Vies have gone beyond sea, and the revisioners cannot find out whether they are alive or dead, whereas diverse lords of manors and others have granted estates by lease for one or more life or lives, and else for years determinable upon one or more life or lives. And it has often happened that such person or persons whose life or lives such estates have been granted have gone beyond the seas or so absented themselves for many years that the lesser or revisioners cannot find out whether such person or persons be alive or dead, by reason whereof such lessers or revisioners have been held out of possession of their tenement for many years upon all the lives upon which such estate depend, are dead in regards that the lesser and revisioners, when they have brought actions for the recovery of their tenant, but have been put upon it to prove the death of their tenant, when it was almost impossible for them to discover the same, for remedy of which mischief so frequently happened to such lessers or revisioners. Cestui Que Vie remaining beyond the sea for 7 years together, and no proof of their lives, judge in action to direct a verdict as through Cestui Que Vie were dead. If such person or persons whose life or lives such estates have been or shall be granted as aforesaid shall remain beyond the sea, or were elsewhere absent themselves in this real me by the space of 7 years together, and no sufficient evidence be made of the lives of such person or persons respectively, in any action commenced for recovery of such tenement by the lesser or revisioners. In every such case, the person or person whose life or lives such estate depends shall be accounted as naturally dead. And in every action brought for the recovery of said tenement by the lessor or revisioner, their heirs, or assigned, the judges before whom such action shall be brought shall direct the jury to give their verdict as if the person so remains beyond the sea or otherwise absenting himself were dead. Let me make sure you understand what has been uncovered on this path so far. Number one, we are civilly dead entities, meaning we are considered as if we are naturally dead so far as our rights go. 2, we are co-beneficiaries and co-trustees of the public charitable trust, which means we own legal title to a specific asset and we stand to benefit from this asset. 3, this public charitable trust is a constructive Cestui Que trust, or a trust created as an equitable remedy for a wrong that has been committed against us, and we are the beneficiaries having an equitable interest in that trust. 4, Cestui Que Vie means he who lives in English. This trust was first created in England after the government seized private property of their citizens and forced them to prove that they were alive in order to get their private property back. That's deep. Didn't Yahweh give our fathers a choice between life and death? Wasn't heaven and earth called to record that choice? Deuteronomy 30:15-20. See, I am setting before you life and prosperity, and death and disaster. What I am commanding you today is to love Yahweh your Elohim by going in his ways and by keeping his commandments and his statutes and his regulations, and then you will live and you will become numerous, and Yahweh your Elohim will bless you in the land where you are going. However, if your heart turn aside and you do not listen, and you are lured away and you bow down to other gods and you serve them, I declare to you today that you will certainly perish, and you will not extend your time on the land that you are crossing the Jordan to go there to take possession of it. I invoke as a witness against you today the heaven and the earth. Life and death I set before you, blessings and curse. So choose life so that you may live, you and your offspring, by loving Yahweh your Elohim, by listening to his voice, and by clinging to him. For he is your life and length of your days, in order for you to live in the land that Yahweh swore to your ancestors, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob to give to them. Hallelujah. The fact that we are in our enemy's land serving this punishment is proof that our fathers chose death. It was established in the last video that we were civilly dead. Now we find out there's a trust that actually means he who lives. And we are co-beneficiaries and co-trustees of the trust. How did we become co-trustees and co-beneficiaries of a trust without our knowledge? It happened the day we were born. Just like the English government declared their citizens dead, you and I were declared dead shortly after we were born. Most of us were born in the hospital. When you were born in the hospital, the staff made a record of your birth when they took your footprints and put them on that small index card. That was all you needed. However, our parents was told that they needed to register their child with the state and apply for a birth certificate and a social security card. When our mothers applied for birth certificates for us, unbeknown to them, they turned us over to the state and we became wards of the state. A corporation was registered in our birth names and we were declared dead by the state. Sound far-fetched, right? Remember, the law is where the true history of a nation is found. Right in their Internal Revenue Manual, 21.7.13.3.2.2, an infant is the decedent of an estate or grantor, owner or truster of a trust, guardianship, receiver, or custodianship that has yet to receive a Social Security number. Decedent is a person who has died. Remember I told you to remember the word grantor? A trustee is a person or organization that holds the legal title to an asset or group of assets for a person called a grantor. Here, the IRS is calling an infant a dead person or grantor, owner of a trust who has yet to receive a Social Security number. What is the legal title we own? Your birth certificate is actually a property title that is used as a security. That's right. Your birth certificate is a registered security. Since our birth certificates are traded on the stock exchange like any other corporation, let's see what Nasdaq's definition of a registered security is. A registered security is used in the context of general equities, securities whose owner is recorded on the books of the issuer or the issuer's agent called a registrar. So our birth certificates are basically warehouse receipts for the baby, the delivered goods. A warehouse receipt, which is considered a document of title, may be a negotiable instrument used for financing when inventory at security. That's according to Black's Law Dictionary, the 7th edition. This bond is sold to the World Bank, Bank of International Settlements, created by the Vatican in 1931 as a settler of the trust. The 13th Amendment banned involuntary slavery. The 14th Amendment made us citizens of the United States and property of the United States instead of private property of our individual slaveholders. Therefore, all U.S. citizens residing in one of the states of the Union are classified as property, as franchises of the federal government, and as an individual entity. And you can find that in Wheeling Steel Corp versus Fox 298 U.S. 19380 LED 114356. This is a court ruling. As it was shown in the last video, we were made into persons, but still property. To seal the deal, the powers that be made not only us, but all persons born within its borders voluntarily submit to this new form of slavery through the voluntary registration of the birth certificates. It is no coincidence that the full-fledged adoption of the birth certificate registration requirements in the United States went into effect around the same time the Federal Reserve confiscated all the gold of the U.S. citizens. Congress was given the power to print money, but they rather enslave us through debt and borrow it from the Federal Reserve. We went from private chattel property to debt chattel slaves. Proverbs 22:7. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. We became comfortable in slavery because we could drive a car, live in a better home, or wear some fancy garments. We have been deceived to believe this is freedom. This is not the freedom promised to us by the Almighty. We forsook Yahweh for the nation's gods. We thought the grass was greener on the other side. We left a loving relationship for an abusive relationship with our captors and their gods. Our adulterous fathers ran after the nation's gods like whores. Yahweh in turn punished us for this evil as he promised in the covenant agreement our fathers made. Where are your lovers that you have chosen, Israel? No one stands for you. Not one of our brothers have been able to stand before the oppressors. Why? No one pleads our cause. Where are your so-called friends and lovers that are among the other nations? Why are they silent when you are mistreated? We are treated like nobodies, like dead men with no rights. We watched our brothers' First Amendment rights be violated this week, and no one stood for them. Jeremiah 31:11-15. For I am with you, declares Yahweh, to save you. For I will make a complete destruction of all the nations to which I scattered you. But you I will not make a complete destruction, and I will chastise you to the measure, and I will not leave you entirely unpunished. For thus saith Yahweh, your injury is incurable. Your wound is overcome by sickness. There is no one who pleads your cause. For your boil, there is no healing for you. All your lovers have forgotten you. They do not care for you. I have struck you with the blow of an enemy, the punishment of the cruel. Because of the greatness of your guilt, your sins are numerous. Why do you cry because of your wound? Your pain is incurable. Because of the greatness of your guilt, your sins are vast. I have done these things unto you. We are treated this way because by their own admission, we are civilly dead. And by Yahweh's admission, we are dead. We will not be reestablished or resurrected until Yahweh does it. Ezekiel 37:1-12. For the hand of Yahweh was upon me, and he brought me by the Spirit of Yahweh, and he let me rest in the midst of the valley, and it was full of bones. And he led me all around over them, and look, very many on the surface of the valley, and they looked very dry. And he said to me, Son of man, can these bones live? And I said, Elohim Yahweh, you know. And he said to me, prophesy to these bones, and you must say to them, to the dry bones, hear the word of Yahweh. Thus saith Yahweh Elohim to these bones, look, I am bringing you into you breath, and you will live. And I will lay on you sinew, and I will let flesh come upon you. And I will cover you over with skin, and I will put breath into you, and you will live, and you will know that I am Yahweh. And I prophesied just as I had been commanded, and there was a sound at my prophesying, and look, a rattling, and they came together, the bones, bone to its bone. And I look, and indeed sinew were on them, and flesh went up, and skin covered over them upward, but breath was not in them. And he said to me, prophesy to the breath. Prophesy, son of man, and you must say to the breath, thus saith Yahweh Elohim, from the four winds, come, O spirit and breath, on these dead bones so that they may live. And I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came into them, and they became alive, and they stood on their feet, a very, very large army. And he said to me, Son of man, these bones are all of the house of Israel. Look, they are saying, our bones are dried up, and our hope is destroyed. We are cut off as far as we are concerned. Therefore, prophesy, and you must say to them, thus saith Yahweh Elohim, look, I am opening your graves, and I will bring you up from your graves, my people, and I will bring you into the land of Israel. Hallelujah. We will not be established in this land, so stop looking for it. This is not the land Yahweh promised blessings and security in. Jeremiah 31:1-12. At that time, declares Yahweh, I will be the Elohim of all the clans of Israel. and they will be to me a people. Thus saith Yahweh, the people of the survivors of the sword found grace in the desert, Israel going to find their rest. From afar Yahweh appeared to me, saying, I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore I have drawn you with loyal love. I will again build you, and you will be built, O virgin Israel. You will again adorn yourself with your tambourines, and you will go forth in dancing in a ring of the merrymakers. You will again plant vineyards on the mountain of Samaria. The planters will plant, and they will enjoy it. For there will be a day when watchmen will call in the hill country of Ephraim, stand up, and let us go up to Zion, to Yahweh our Elohim. For thus saith Yahweh, sing for joy for Jacob with gladness, and shout out for the head of the nations. Proclaim praise and say, save, O Yahweh, your people, the remnant of Israel. Look, I am going to bring them from the land of the north, and I will gather them from the remotest parts of the earth. Among them the blind and the lame, those who were pregnant and those who give birth, together, a great assembly. They will return here. With weeping they will come, and with pleas of mercy I will bring them. I will let them walk by streams of water in a straight path. They will not stumble in it, for I have become to Israel a father, and Ephraim, he is my firstborn. Hear the word of Yahweh, O nations, and declare in the coastlands from afar, and say, the scatterer of Israel will gather him, and he will keep him as a shepherd his flock. For Yahweh has ransomed Jacob, and he has redeemed him from the hand of the person stronger than he. And they will come, and they will sing for joy on the height of Zion, and they will be radiant over the goodness of Yahweh, over the grain, and over the wine, and over the olive oil, and over the young ones of the flock, and over the cattle. And their life will become like a well-watered garden, and they will never languish again. Then the young women will rejoice in the dancing in a ring, and the young men and the older men together. And I will turn their mourning to jubilation, and I will comfort them, and I will gladden them from their sorrow. Hallelujah. Until that time comes, we have to work with what we've been dealt with. Proverbs 22:1. A good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, and loving favor rather than silver and gold. Psalms 83 says that our enemies are in a confederacy to make the name of Israel be remembered no more. Our fathers' names were taken from them when they went into captivity. Our names were stolen from us when we were born in this land. Our mothers were coerced to sign us over as wards of the state. Our footprints were taken. We then were declared dead. Our footprints is the evidence of our birth and of us being the grantor, as the IRS manual stated, of an estate. As the grantor or deceased of our estate, a title or a certificate of live birth was issued, and a Cestui Que trust was created in our names. The certificate of live birth has a state seal and a registrar's signature, which is certifiable proof the estate is in or has been in probate. The registrar is the court of probate, and probate deals with estates of the deceased, one who is in the act of dying. To the courts, we are dead, legal fictitious entities, wards of the state. Infant, which in Old English means unable to speak. This is why they always want us to have an attorney to speak on our behalf. Our enemies went so far to make sure the name of Israel be remembered no more by taking possession of your name and estate, which is you, then gave us a quasi-freedom while they plotted craftily to secure us as their property. They were hell-bent on keeping us as their slaves, that they enslaved their own, while fraudulently claiming this to be the land of the free and the home of the brave. They were so hell-bent on this evil that they committed this wicked act on all the citizens of the United States by enslaving us all under the debt system. Edward Mandell House, an advisor to President Woodrow Wilson, helped to pick the original Federal Reserve Board members. He was also the chief advisor on the Paris Peace Conference, said in a private meeting with Woodrow Wilson, "Very soon, every American will be required to register their biological property, that's you and your children, in a national system designed to keep track of the people, and that will operate under the ancient system of pledging. By such methodology, we can compel people to submit to our agenda, which will affect our security as a chargeback for our fiat paper currency. Every American will be forced to register or suffer being able to work and earn a living. They will be our chattel property, and we will hold the security interest over them forever. By operation of the law of merchants under the scheme of secured transactions, Americans, by unknowingly or unwittingly delivering the bill of lading, which is your birth certificate, to us, will be rendered bankrupt and insolvent, secured by their pledges. They will be stripped of their rights and given a commercial value designed to make us a profit, and they will be none the wiser. For not one man in a million could ever figure out our plans, and if, by accident, one or two should figure it out, we have in our arsenal plausible deniability. After all, this is the only logical way to fund government, by floating liens and debts to the registrants in the form of benefits and privileges. This will inevitably reap us huge profits beyond our wildest expectation and leave every American a contributor to this fraud, which we will call social insurance. Without realizing it, every American will unknowingly be our servant, however begrudgingly. The people will become helpless and without any hope for their redemption, and we will employ the high office, presidency, of our dummy corporation. Remember, the U.S. corporation, the U.S. government is a corporation, to foment this plot against America. Yahweh have mercy. This quote was taken from the book Mel Sampters wrote on Fruit from a Poisonous Tree, but these are actual words that came from the private papers of Woodrow Wilson, and you can find this on your government websites. What is a pledge? According to Black's Law Dictionary, the 7th edition, a pledge is a bailment or deposit of personal property to a creditor as security for a debt or obligation. The old system of pledges involves giving something of collateral or a pledge when they borrowed something. Numbers 30 verses 2. If a man vows a vow to Yahweh or swears an oath to bind himself by a pledge, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceedeth out of his mouth. For those who claim they are keeping the laws of Yahweh, they should know that they are not to be involved in pledging, nor becoming surety for anyone. Exodus 22, 25-27. If you lend money to my people, to the needy with you, you will not be to him as a creditor. You will not charge him interest. If indeed you require the cloak of your neighbor as a pledge, you will return it to him at sundown, because it is his only garment. It is his cloak for his skin. And what will he sleep? And when he cries out to me, I will hear, because I am gracious. Proverbs 17:18. A person who lacks sense pledges. He becomes surety before his neighbor. Have mercy. Proverbs 22, verse 26. Do not be with those who give pledges by becoming surety. We were moved into this new form of debt slavery, or pledging, when the U.S. government confiscated the American people's gold and put them on the new system of pledging. The birth certificates were used to make a surety for the debt of the government as they borrowed money to oblivion for the Federal Reserve central banking system. They knew what they did was wrong. This is why they provided a remedy. A remedy they never expected anyone to figure out. Thank Yahweh, there is a remedy to this. And by the enemy providing a remedy to their people, there is also a remedy to us in this act. The remedy is found in the Cestui Que trust law. Today, you are considered dead to them. However, if the supposed dead man, you and I, prove to be alive, then the title is reverted, which means the profits that they made while we were assumed dead reverts back to us with interest. They can no longer profit off of us nor trade our names on their stock exchanges. If we were considered property prior to the passing of the 14th Amendment, in the Supreme Court opinion to Dred Scott, Judge Taney stated, the plaintiff himself acquired no title to freedom by being taken by his owner to Rock Island in Illinois and brought back to Missouri. This court has heretofore decided that the status or condition of a person of African descent depends on the laws of the state in which he resides. After the passing of the 14th Amendment, the opinion of the court in the Steel Corp versus Fox case confirmed that U.S. citizens are property of the federal government. So where is your title to freedom? All property comes with some sort of receipt of ownership or title. Your birth certificate is your legal title to yourself and your property. You have the right to claim your property by establishing yourself as a living, breathing human being. Until you make your live life claim, we are considered dead to this nation. I thank Yahweh. He has not forgotten us, and he promised that the dead bones will not only live again, but be placed back in their own soil. The bones in the valley of the dry bones did not all spring forth to life at once. It was a process. They came together. The sinew came upon them, then the flesh, and eventually Yahweh caused the breath to return to them. It is also a process among these men, but it's worth it. If you are interested in learning more, I would suggest you purchase the book Meet Your Straw Man by David E. Robinson. This book can be purchased for $5 off Amazon, but is well worth the read and very eye-opening. I would also like you to go and give the House of Yeshua a follow on YouTube. My elder, Israel Yehuda, puts out powerful lessons that I know will edify you. I hope you will investigate all the information provided and make a judgment call on if the orphans and the helpless and the poor have been treated justly. We need righteous equity and justice in the earth. Yahweh chose Israel to be a nation of kings and priests. We failed miserably. Yahweh gave our fathers ample opportunity to amend their ways in the land. They refused, and look what he said to them. Isaiah 1:10-23. Hear the word of Yahweh, ye rulers of Sodom. Give ear unto the law of our Elohim, ye people of Gomorrah. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me, saith Yahweh? I am full of the burnt offerings of rams, and the fat of fed beasts, and I delight not in the blood of bullocks, or lambs, or he-goats. When you come to appear before me, who have required this at your hand, to tread my courts? Bring no more vain oblations. Incense is an abomination unto me. The new moons and the Shabbats, the calling of assemblies, I cannot. Away with it. It is an equity, even the solemn meetings. Your new moons and your appointed feasts, my soul hateth. They are a trouble unto me. I am weary to bear them. And when ye spread forth your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. Yea, when ye make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood. Wash you, make you clean. Put away the evil of your doings from before mine eyes. Cease to do evil. Learn to do well. Seek judgment. Relieve the oppressed. Judge the fatherless. Plead for the widow. Come now, let us reason together, saith Yahweh. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool. If ye be willing and obedient, you will eat the good of the land. But if you refuse and rebel, you shall be devoured with the sword, for the mouth of Yahweh hath spoken it. How is the faithful city become a harlot? It was full of judgment, righteousness lodged in it, but now murderers. Silver is become dross. Thy wine mixed with water. Thy princes are rebellious and companions of thieves. Every one loveth gifts and followeth after rewards. They judge not the fatherless, nor doth the cause of the widow come unto them. Have mercy. While it's too late for our fathers, it is not too late for us to begin to judge rightly among ourselves and to seek judgment. Relieve the oppressed. Learn to do well. Plead for the fatherless and the widows. One day, we will inherit the nations. They will be our servants. Yahweh is always watching if we fear him and shun evil, or if our companions are thieves. Do we disregard the right because we love gifts, or if we never judge rightly the fatherless or defend the cause of the widows? Psalms 82. Yahweh stands in the divine assembly. He administers judgment in the midst of the elves. How long will you judge unjustly and show favoritism to the wicked? Selah. Judge on behalf of the helpless and the orphans. Provide justice to the afflicted and the poor. Rescue the helpless and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. They do not know or consider. They go about in darkness, so that all the foundations of the earth are shaken. I have said, ye are gods and sons of the Most High, all of you. However, you will die like men, and you will fall like one of the princes. Rise, O Elohim, judge the earth, because you shall inherit all nations. Hallelujah. Shalom, shalom, and I hope you will join me for the next video.